All right, I'm going to go back to screen share. How many people were able to get their tile exercise done, or at least started?
I'm actually working on mine right now, so we're in the
Oh, excellent.
process.
Excellent. Well, is that Color Wheel website, is that has that been helpful?
Yeah, it really has. It's been great to just look over and decide what would work best for like what I'm trying to accomplish.
All right, great. I I mean there are a billion of those color wheel things. What I liked about that one was that it listed several of the different kinds of color contrast um, schemes, and it would help you pick out which colors went where. And I don't know, I thought it was a really nice one. John, I'm glad you were able to get that started. The typically the texture one we don't do an awful lot of color, but we thought it would be good to do both those exercises leading up into this last project that we're working on, which is the colorful cocoon, just to get you ready for the quiz, but also help make everybody aware that color is a big part of sculpture. We don't normally think of that because color goes for illustration and painting and everything else. But how many people were aware that the Etruscans, Greeks, and Romans all actually painted those marble busts? Anybody know that? A thousand years after the fact, we look at a lot of these sculptures around the world, and all the paint has been blasted away by the wind over time and people handling it. But most of these sculptures, like we see in Greece and Rome, or in the Roman Empire, but also I believe in like Ansar Dam, the Egyptian ones, a lot of those temples and stuff, they were painted as well after being sculpted. And there are descriptions in ancient literature of these sculptures that were painted to make them look lifelike as well. But something to think about. Today, in today's world, we really don't expect that. I think that's one of the reasons why in the Renaissance, with all the marble work that was done, particularly by people like Michelangelo, it's just the marble and just the beauty of the stone. Because I don't think that they knew that these old sculptures that they were using as inspiration had been painted originally. For question one, what I would like to do is go around and you can either type this in the box if your mic isn't working, or you can say it out loud. But I'd like a different person to address each of these with the six terms. What is simultaneous contrast? Anybody know what that is? And one hint is think of a chessboard. Everybody knows what contrast is. Everybody knows what complementary colors are. Usually when you use them, you have a primary set of colors that you do your work with, and then you uh, attract attention or counterbalance or counterpoint elements of it with the complementary color. Simultaneous contrast is when you have contrasting colors, and they can be complementary, but they both carry equal weight. Instead of working with one primary color, you're working with two, like a chessboard, and they both have the same weight to them visually. And there are examples. I think there's some really good T-shirt design, very graphically doing this. Barbara Kruger is an artist that does a lot of um, te- uh, text design and graphic imagery, and she uses simultaneous contrast really well for her lettering and things. But people do use it. Just most of the time, we're used to seeing a principal color and then something picked out with the complement. What is the value of a color?
It's how light or dark a color is.
I'm sorry, I was spacing off there for just a minute. I think that's right. If we are working with, I think it deals with like the overall tone of something. Like if we're dealing with light values, you're just exactly right. They're colors that are in a lighter shades, and if we're dealing with dark values, then they're colors with darker shades. So excellent. Now, what is the hue of a color?
It's more of like the shade of color than lightness or darkness.
Yeah, it's actually the color name. You're right. Right now, what's saturation?
Would that be the intensity of the color?
Yes, that's exactly right. That's the intensity. Now, what are cool colors?
It's like those that give, I guess, like give you like feelings of like coolness, like blues, purples, greens.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Cool colors, easily put, or simply put, are the ones that have shades of the blue side of the color wheel in them. So yeah, you're exactly right. If we look across the valley, you can see the mountains as they recede are shaded in shades of blue. A lot of times water will have blues and greens going on. So yeah, the cool colors are the ones, like we just said, that are on the greens, purples, and blues sides of the spectrum. What is subtractive color mixing? This is one of those ringers we put in that's out of the textbook, and it's not exactly what you expect. Does anybody know what subtractive color mixing is? There are generally two different ways that we generate color as artists. One is with mixing pigments, and one is through mixing light. And with light, as you're looking at that, different wavelengths of light are overlaid to each other or generated. And as they are overlaid, the new uh, wavelengths um, are developed, and those new wavelengths are what we see as color. When we're dealing with pigment, and that is called additive color mixing. When we're dealing with pigment, what comes off the pigment is just that portion of the color that the wavelength bounces off. And when you add to it, it takes away a lot of those potentials and leaving just the specific color that you want to generate. And so when you work with pigments, that's called subtractive color mixing. So light is additive and pigment is subtractive. Does anybody not believe that? Does that sound plausible? Now, in one sentence, who knows who Roy G. Biv is? Where he lives, how old he is, and what his name stands for? Anybody?
Is this a trick question? um, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet?
Yes, that's exactly right. No, I throw in the things about where he lives and how old he is just to throw people off. But yeah, That's exactly it. It's the colors of the rainbow, the 7 bands of color. And so when you answer this question, all you need to do is say something like it's the colors of the rainbow and then list them all. So that's how easy this question is. And if anybody wants to know how old he is, at least he's probably about 16 billion years old. He's about as old as the universe. So he still gets around pretty well. Now here, this is right out of the textbook as well. Does anybody know what a ready-made is, and who the artist, the sculptor is, who is credited as pioneering the use of them? Centuries ago, there was a person named Ibn Khaldun. He is, by a lot of people, he's considered the great grandfather of modern museology and display theory. But one of the things he said was, when we pull something out of context and give it another context, it changes the thing itself. I always thought that was kind of interesting. When you go into a museum, I used to love museums. I still enjoy museums, just seeing all the artifacts from people's lives. And you go into one of these museums that came back from an anthropology expedition somewhere, they will label as something as innocuous as a child's doll with scientific terms and present it like has a very different importance than it did to the little boy or little girl, the little person who had that and played with it when they were young. I think one example of this is the Cycladic idol. We've all seen these. They figures that are anywhere from 8 to 14 inches high, and they look like a simplified human form. They're from ancient Greece. When somebody found that they had also been painted, like those statues that we mentioned earlier, it seemed to be, a lot of parents will look at that and think to themselves, well, maybe it's, an early action figure for a child or an early doll. And it may very well be. But taking it out of context, giving it a different name, gives it a completely different feel than most likely the family had when they first made it, gave it to their child. The point to this conversation is a ready-made is when you take an object that was already manufactured, made by somebody else, and you present it as artwork with a new name, with a new context. And it may not even have to have a new name, but definitely a new context. What changes when an ordinary object is presented as art? Anyone? What are some of the things that change when you tell somebody that this ordinary thing is now art?
I think that it challenges like our perception of the things around us, because you can take an ordinary object that we see every day, but completely change what we think and what we feel about it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That's a really good analysis, because that is exactly what happens. We all carry a certain amount of expectations, and there's this connotation or connotative weight to an object, where when we encounter it, we know what to expect a lot of the times. Which leads us to our second code word of the day, which is weight. And you can spell that, whoever's listening can spell that either as an action word or an object. There was a gentleman about maybe a little over 100 years ago who was rather disgusted with the way that the art world had become very gallery-centric and very sales-centric. Instead of people being free to express themselves, most artists felt, just as they do today, the sometimes desperate need to make to market, to produce things that people were expecting. And the gallery system at the time in France was all about finding somebody that they could promote and then basically selling the snot out of their works. After the Industrial Revolution, art became more commodified than it had been before. And people were very interested in buying original pieces as things. And so Marcel Duchamp thought to himself, well, how can we change this perception of art? It needs to be no longer elevated above the understanding of people. And so rather than trying to educate the masses, he tried to educate the gallery system, I believe. So one of the most famous things he did was he took a men's urinal and set it on, upside down and displayed it, and he painted on the side of it fountain. And so he just titled it The Fountain. And he put that into a gallery setting. I don't know if people today can imagine how shocking that was at the time, but can anybody imagine or guess why something like that would be so shocking? Anybody have an idea why displaying a men's urinal in a gallery setting and retitling it Fountain would be shocking to anybody? Well, I think one thing is we're looking at a family setting. But in addition to that, people at the time, uh, those who went to gallery openings and things like that, were conditioned to expect original work. And repurposing a fountain, your men's urinal, and giving it a new tile is not exactly, from many people's perspective, original work. Who would like to handle the idea that it might very well be original work doing something like that? What is original about displaying something that everybody uses and giving it a different title? Dane, is your microphone working? Would you like to try a stab at that? Or Amelia?
There's almost something in like the shock value of it that's original in itself. And I think it's so shocking to walk into a beautiful art gallery and see something that's almost crude in a way and say this is art.
I think there's something really valuable to that observation. I think you're absolutely right. I think that that is what caused a lot of people to be upset. Now, if we think it, I imagine, this is a family setting. Can you imagine the parents who this is the first time their young child ever saw a man's urinal in any setting? But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And if we move that forward to today, what is creative or original about the artist doing this is that the artist is aware that there is this connotative weight associated with an object, and they are purposely presenting it as something else. Many times, when the artist does that, they're just asking you to think in different ways. And sometimes, like this gentleman, they are doing that specifically to shock you. But the answer to this question number 3 is Marcel Duchamp is a person that is credited with the pioneering use of ready-mades. And a ready-made is a pre-made object that the artist just repurposes by presenting it differently. And that's pretty much it. And you can do that with most anything. I think one excellent example of this is Jeff Koons, his pile of Play-Doh, original pile of Play-Doh. He did another one that was a cast aluminum piece that was designed to look like a pile of Play-Doh. But I believe the first time he did it, it was actually Play-Doh that was just layered up on itself. And when we see ordinary things out of context, it does make us think. And I think that that's a really good way for you to engage with your audience, is to just do something unexpected where all people have to do is think to themselves, wait a sec, that's something that I use every day. Why is the artist giving it this title and presenting it in this way? And it's a really good way to involve your audience. But yeah, good answer. Thank you. We go to number 4. What are the 2 main reasons people choose to use found materials to make art? I think everybody could give a reason. I think one of the ones is just to jolt people awake. It's something like you remember in that one quiz, there was a person that made the baby that was like 20 feet long, and I'm not saying that the baby is a found object at all, but that is a way of presenting something that is designed specifically to just jolt people awake. What are some reasons that you think that people use found materials to make art? Let's hear from as many people as we can.
I think kind of along with what we were saying before. Sorry, Amelia. Is just using something that you find somewhere else that's already made and putting it in a completely different context, like above just naming it something differently, but actually using it to make art and make something different, just kind of challenges people's perception and view of the materials you're using.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's a really good one. I set up an exhibit last year where a person did textural paintings where they used elements from a piano. So she had used actually one of the felt hammers to paint with on the side of it. And you could very clearly see it's a hammer from a piano, but it just exactly like what you said. It takes it so far out of context that it was a little bit startling, I think. So yeah, very good answer. Who's next?
I was gonna say cost is probably part of it. That's boring to say, but that might have something to do with it.
I don't think that's boring at all to say, and I think that is a very practical perspective. Yeah, a lot of the times, like when I make sculptures, if I want to have, for example, a little tiny book in one of the sculptures, I can make it. I do bookbinding, but that's going to take me several hours. It's easier to go and find uh, one of the books that they make for a doll uh, display in Hobby Lobby, for example. I can just buy that, and if I really want to change it, I can draw a new title on the cover or something. But yeah, it saves me time and money, and I think that that's a really good perspective to take as well. That's another one of the main reasons people use found materials to make art. Very good. Anybody, Elvin, do you have another perspective on this?
Sorry, I was here with my kid and he was distracting me and I wasn't paying attention. What was the question again?
No, that's no problem at all. What is one reason why people use found materials to make art?
Um,
we've talked about switching the context to engage somebody, and we've talked about because it's cheaper. What's another way? What's another reason?
I don't know. Like maybe this is just me throwing stuff out there. Maybe it could be just like I don't know, to use something different, to kind of like use a little bit of I guess just to be more unique on the things that they want to make. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as a good example of that is the texture tiles when you use bits of stuff you picked up from your walk. So yeah, excellent. I've got to answer a question from somebody else right away, but yeah, all three of those are excellent answers. Hold on just a second.
Did Justin give you a drawing for some mirrors to do a shop drawing of for Cedar Valley construction? It's like a wall of mirrors.
He may have, but I don't know where it is. If I had it, it would be by the computer by Bruce.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I'm back. Yeah, I think all three of those are really good. So Elvin was saying something that makes it look very different. Uh, and I think a good example of that is like a textural quality of a found object. Say, for example, you're making things and you use some of the stuff you found from your census journey. You could use bark in something, and bark is just a tactile texture, has a very interesting feel to it that is unique. And then I believe it was Amelia that said it was cheaper, and I believe it was McKenna that said it jolts people because of the shift in context. And all three of those are very good. So look at the text as well, but I think all you got to do is just list two, so that's good. Now for question number 5, this is important to reference to your textbook as well. But I would recommend when you do this portion, just have a note pad near you where you can write down what all the different uh, types of color schemes there are. And as you go through, each one is only used once in this question number 5, and I believe you will have one left over. So we can go through these pretty quick, and if you know what they are, just shout it out. But I'm going to just scroll down. You can see all these. The bottom one, 4-color sentence, that's pretty easy. How many colors are you seeing? You're only seeing 4. So that one's a tetrad. This Evil Twin by Sergio Farfan. We look at, I mean, it doesn't really seem that there is much of a color scheme at all. It just seems like they're random. If we go up here to the list again, see one of them is Discord. And I think that's a perfect example of Discord. Now, if we look at this one right here, there's a couple outliers, but for the most part, this is all the same color. And so if we go up here to the list, and this is all with found objects, and see all the same color, let's see, monochromatic, that's what it would be. We go back down, we'll look at here, how many colors are they showing? Well, there's blue, red, and yellow. So there's 3 colors. We'll look up here, and there we go, triad. That's a use of 3 colors in your color scheme. And then right here, Sandy Scoglin's Revenge of the Goldfish. Who would like to take a stab at what color scheme is being used here?
I think this one is complementary.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much so. We have the bluish walls and bed and everything, and then we have the orange goldfish. So yes, complementary, exactly. Very good. Now, right there, we have monochromatic because it's one color. Technically, grays are not colors. So what would this color scheme be? Is it just shades of gray? We look back up here, right here, achromatic, no color used. Now, when we look at this one, the Rowan leaf circle, these are not jumping around the color wheel. We're not working with complements. It is definitely color and it's not monochromatic. So which one of these do you think, we've already used several of them, which one of these do you think this the Rowan leaf circle is? Anybody want to take a guess?
Analogous.
Yeah, analogous refers to colors that are right next to each other. We have here, are these warm colors or cool colors?
Warm.
Yeah, they're all warm colors. It's not the same color. We have dark reds, we have strong oranges, pale oranges, and going to yellows, but they all are warm. And so this one is definitely analogous. Very good. Now here, the question is, with the next four images, identify if the work relies on applied color or natural color. And then you just type in applied or natural in the blank. We look at, here's Michelangelo's Brutus. Here's Seven Magic Mountains. This is Sycamore with colored leaves. And this is Man with tar head. So what ones look like they've been painted? Because that's how we most easily apply color. Do you think this one is natural or applied color?
Natural.
Yes, very good, excellent. It is natural. It's the same way it was when he finished it. Now, Seven Magic Mountains, has anybody been to the Badlands in South Dakota? Any of you? The Badlands in South Dakota, I was just amazed with how bright the colors are. When I was there, it was right after a rainstorm, and it looked like somebody had spilled ice cream all over the landscape. It was amazing. But that been said, do you think that these stacked stones and pillars, do you think this is applied color or natural? Anybody?
It's applied.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's pretty obvious that he painted it. But yeah, very much. Okay, now with the rowan leaves, the colored leaves around the sycamore. This one is a little bit trickier because Andy Goldsworthy definitely did place the leaves. But is that color that we're seeing, is it natural or applied? Anybody? Do you think he painted all those leaves? Absolutely not. So this one is very definitely natural. Now this last one, I think that this one is a little bit disturbing for me. Is this color natural or applied?
That's probably applied.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's very much applied. Now I'll go to the next one. Now this question number 7, this is one of the essay ones. And I've noticed that most of you are doing really well with the essay questions. Sometimes I will get long expositions from somebody, and that is perfectly fine. Most of the time, you just answer the questions with a couple sentences, and that's just exactly right. Either way you want to do it. Now here, what I would like you to do is one sentence on each of these. And we can talk about these. Betty Saar's work on the left and John Chamberlain's work on the right, both of them are using objects that they found, like Marcel Duchamp's ready-mades. The one on the right, to me, looks like it is accomplishing something very different than the one on the left. What do you think the one on the left is about? How would you describe it? Do you think these objects are placed together randomly? Is there an order to them? And if there's an order, what kind of order? I'm not asking for you to comment on the message itself that Betty Saar is sharing, but just how are these objects put together?
Well, I think the main difference is the left one is they've used found objects to create something that we are familiar with, like a human form, whereas the right one is they're using found objects to create something else that's abstract.
Yes, very good. That is very nicely put. The Liberation of Aunt Jemima, Betty Saar, I believe, is an artist of color, and she was really addressing the whole idea of the Jim Crow's America. And the big point from this, though, is exactly like what you just said. She took the found objects and she built a narrative with the found objects by putting them together in something in a specific way so that there was a message communicated. Now, what that message is, I'm sure it will be different to each individual, but it was very specifically designed to form like a narrative piece. And if we look, and then if we go for our second sentence and look at John Chamberlain, what he did, he was all about formalism. He was all about exploring shape and color and texture, just as a way of displaying them in something that felt, for many people, rather satisfying. And it is like just exactly like what you just said. It is very abstract, and it is designed specifically for you to look at it and just enjoy the textures and colors, and that's it. So no narrative attempt was made. But that's, I think, what a really big difference is between people that use ready-mades. A lot of the times people will very consciously work with altering the context, altering expectations, generating some sort of a story. And then other people will use it because they like the color, they like the texture, and it feels like they fit together nicely. And so I think these talk about two of the ways that people use ready-mades as well. So yeah, very good answer. Let's see, I'm going to the next question now. Now I'm going to just do a little bit of an editorial. I really like Fran Crow's work. In this particular piece, one thing I really like about it is the person is making a very strong statement, but they're making it using humor without beating you over the head. Now, there are times and places for artists to be activists of sorts and be very blatant with the message that they're sharing. And I think the message in this is a little bit more subtle. Who here has ever been to one of the little tourist town that exists pretty much primarily to painlessly extract passersby from their income? Has anybody been to one of these little tourist towns? A good example of one would be the town that Wall Drug is in South Dakota. The only reason the town exists is because Wall Drug, the person who started that, has put billboards up and down the highway saying, hey, you're only 3 miles from Wall Drug. You're only 1 mile from Wall Drug. Wall Drug is right around the corner. nobody knows what Wall Drug is all about, but it was advertised specifically for people to stop in and find out. And that person made their fortune by selling useless items and treats to passersby that were tired of driving and wanted to take a break. But when I look at this particular example of Fran Crow's work, that card there, you see a present from Dunwich? That card is exactly the kind of cheap thing that you would find in a little souvenir bag at one of these roadside places. You know, whether the person wants you to see their 50-foot ball of twine, or the trilobite collection that they have, or whatever it is. It really is a hallmark of the enterprising individual that is just trying to generate interest and extract money from passersby. So, just that perspective of the tourist piece. But what are the objects that are in these little tourist bags? Anybody? Can anybody see what the stuff is that are in the bags? Well, I'll tell you, we can't identify it specifically, I think, but this is just Fran would walk up and down the beaches around Dunwich, and I believe Fran has done this in other communities as well. Instead of picking up shells and different stuff like seaweed and sticks that the ocean water would just bring in, Fran would pick up garbage, and that's essentially what this is. So the artist in this case takes marine waste or garbage that shows up on the beach, puts amounts of it on these little cards like that to sell to passersby, and the artist will get different tourist trap type stores to have these in their displays. So you can, for $3.95, you can pick up one of these, take it home, and you have a piece from the beach near, in this case, Dunwich. Now, what do you think the goal is of Fran Crow in doing this? Anyone? There are actually several goals.
Well, I think a big part of it is just to bring awareness and kind of open people's eyes to what is happening. But also, I feel like things like this, like you can often buy like little vials of sand or shells from tourist shops, like, okay, this is from this beach or whatever. And so to kind of mimic that with just garbage is like, it just kind of I don't know, brings awareness, like I said before.
I think that's an excellent point, and it's exactly right. Do you feel that this is confrontational?
I don't feel like it's necessarily confrontational, but I don't know, because I don't feel like it is aggressive in any way. It's just like, okay, well, this is the state of our beaches now, so this is what you get instead.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. I don't think she's trying to pick a fight at all. I think that Fran is just trying to make people aware. And by avoiding a fight, it turns it into something that's a little bit humorous. And a lot of the times, this slighted level of humor can be more powerful in opening up a person's heart to your message than confrontation. And there's another thing that's going on that I think is interesting, like what you just barely said. This is what you get now. We go down a beach expecting to see things that the ocean washes up naturally, like seashells. the thing that's so sad is there is so much marine waste that this is the thing that naturally washes up. So you're exactly right. She's by using a little bit of humor, she's opening up people for and preparing them for a message that is really powerful, I think. You know, this is the legacy. Essentially, she's saying this is the legacy we're leaving our children. And just as an editorial aside, it has nothing to do with this, it is interesting to note that if we look at our ancestors for the last several thousand years, the artifacts that have been left behind include things like these beautiful temples and um, just examples of really nice physical workmanship. The thing that will survive our culture will be things like nuclear waste and disposable diapers. And I think that's kind of sad. But so I really like what Fran Crow is doing. And so in 2 to 3 sentences, again, we're talking about helping people to be aware of an environmental issue by presenting it in something of a humorous setting. So you can talk about that, talk about your own feelings, whether or not you like it, that's fine. I don't really care whether or not you express that you like this, as long as when you answer the question, you're articulate and explain whatever your viewpoint is. So very good. Now this one is interesting. In 3 to 4 sentences, compare and contrast the psychological use of color by George Segal in these 2 pieces. So what I want you to do is write 1 sentence describing A, which is the blue woman on park bench, and then, so 1 sentence describes it, then sentence number 2 is how this makes you feel and why the colors make you feel that way. Sentence 3 is woman on the bus seat. Just describe that physically, and then you can, in the same sentence or in sentence 4, write down how the colors make you feel and why they make you feel that way. When we look at this, what is the tonal value of everything? Are these dark or light colors? You know, both of these are by the same artist. And what is interesting to me is that the settings are different. This blue woman on a park bench is in a white room. Woman on a bus seat is in, it looks like a typical gallery setting with a darker floor. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about A, and then I'll go back to talk about B. Here we have darker tones, and the darker tones of color usually, unless there's anything to lighten or brighten them up, have a tendency to slow you down, to make you feel like maybe a lack of energy, calm. And I think some of that is associated with evening. As the sky darkens, our bodies are naturally set to start shutting down and relax. But we also deal with blue. This is a very dark blue, and the woman's posture does not look particularly sprightly. Blue is the color that we normally associate with things like depression, for example. And it could very well be that this woman who does not look very happy, the fact that she's in this environment with dark tones and that she herself is blue, maybe the artist is trying to share her, something of her depression. So that's something to think about. You know, she may very well feel tired and depressed, and that's what we get just from the color. We look over on B, we have this dark floor. This woman's body stands out in really strong contrast. You know, these tones, the red of the door, the blue of the chair, the dark gray of the floor, they're all very dark tones, just like in A, except in this case, the woman is white. She's a stark white, it's all solid, and I think that really makes her stand out from her background. In A, the woman really seems to fit in with her background and start to blend. In B, the woman really stands out. And white, although white in some cultures is the color of death and fear, in a lot of Western cultures, white is a color of energy and brightness and hope and things like that. So it's a little bit more positive, quite a bit more positive. We look at the way that they're sitting. This woman, her back seems to be straight. She looks like she's ready to get up and do something. This woman, she's slumped and it looks like she's just really fed up and tired with everything. And a lot of that message, the reason why I'm saying that, I think, comes from the color. She's blue and she's this bright white. Now you can say whatever you want about it, and maybe you will respond to the color differently. And I don't really care about that aspect of it, as long as you are able to talk about and address the psychological use of color. So, and that brings us to the end of the quiz. So is everybody ready to go out and absolutely ace this quiz? I'm certain everybody is. All right, and I see that somebody. Okay, Dane, excellent. Yeah, it looks like a popper work or drywall inserts. Yes, Dane, I think that you work in construction a little bit, but yeah, this is excellent. Yeah, these are good observations. I don't know if you guys can see chat at all, but once you have access to this, you should be able to look at some of the chat. And Dane has been making some really good comments. Like one of the things he pointed out when we were talking about painting, that headstones in Scandinavia that the Vikings had done were painted as well. And yeah, that's really good. Duchamp, excellent, Dane. Okay, he also pointed out I need to repeat the first code word because I was not recording. The first code word was weird. The second one is wait. And the third one is one of the Animaniacs, Wacko. I don't know if anybody's old enough to know who the Animaniacs are. But Lauren, I'm getting you down as well. Excellent. All right, very good. So I'm seeing, when I do the screen share, I can't really see the comments for whatever reason. So I really appreciate that. And there's some really good stuff in the comments. But yeah, the found material already has a history. Excellent. Applied color, yeah. Very good. And then you also made some comments about Fran's work. And yeah, it looks like it could be popper firework that's been used. It could be drywall inserts like the screw anchors and different things like that. And what I like about it is that, yeah, I think that Fran is very strongly coming against littering, very much so. Were you aware that enough garbage is put into the oceans by City of New York and Tokyo that the sheer volume has displaced enough water that that it is responsible for currents actually being redirected, and that's one of the reasons why sharks are coming closer inland and attacking more human beings, because all the garbage in the ocean has changed the currents enough that the sharks have to create or develop a new hunting ground. I just think that that's really super creepy and gross. Okay, the last two things I want to talk about is the PowerPoint presentation for people and the artist critique. Has everybody had a chance to see the two PowerPoints that are up on our channel already? Or has anybody had a chance to see that?
Yeah, I watched them as I was creating my PowerPoint, and it was really helpful just to see other students' work and kind of be able to like go off of what they've done.
Yeah, excellent. I'm really glad that was good to use, and that's one of the reasons why they're there, so you can kind of see how students. And did you see, McKenna? Did you see one as you were going through that you did not particularly like?
I don't think so. They
Okay.
were all like, I feel like they were different from each other, but both like very informative.
All right. Excellent. Great. Well, I really appreciate that. There was only one that I thought the person just put a whole lot of bullet points in the slides, and I thought that was a little bit much visually. But I think that the ones that we have now that been posted for our class were both really well done. So I'm looking forward to what everybody else is able to do, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think it'll be exciting. Does anybody have any questions about doing the PowerPoint? My recommendation on doing the PowerPoint is, modeling one of those that are already posted up. But you could, there's a number of ways you could go about it. One is I would do maybe 10 slides, and with the first one, I would have an image with the name of the artist. Then I would do 8 slides in sequence, one from each of your annotated bibliographical citations, or one that's associated with it, each one. Just an image that mentally you associate with that citation. And then the 10th slide would be a slide with those 8 citations on it. And the way that I would do the PowerPoint would be pull up the first one, talk about the artist and say, hey, this person is different from me because they are from this country, they speak this language, and they're this age or something. And then I really like their work. Their work resonated with me, and I'm not exactly sure why, but here's a couple things that I really love about their work. And then switch to the next slide. Talk about that, keeping in the back of your mind your citation. I don't want you to read your annotation, but if you found an article about Ai Weiwei or a YouTube video of him, you can just say this shot is taken from YouTube video where he started working with Greek refugees, for example. It's like, his artwork is very sculptural, but he also does a lot of humanitarian stuff. And then go to the next slide and talk about that. And I would do that in any order that seems to be natural and makes sense to you. And then at the very end, you'd have the final slide would be the citations, and you could say, for anybody interested, here are the sources that I used. So does that sound simple enough? Does that sound like something everybody could tackle? Or rather, does anybody have any questions about the PowerPoint? I think Thursday I want to talk a little bit about the artists more. The artists that people have picked, just to see what you guys think about the artists and how much you learned about them. But if there's no questions about the PowerPoint, let's go and let's talk about applying the tools of artistic critique. One question that I get an awful lot about, let's see. Oh, Abby, I did get your attendance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Now, one of the questions that I get about the applying the tools of artistic critique is nobody knows where to start. What I would recommend is having on your phone or something else just that page that shows the tools of artistic critique in the 4 steps. Then what I would do is record it probably on your computer, or you could record it on your phone, either way, but have an image of the artwork that you're going to be doing. Just pull that up on your screen, and then go down that list of 4 questions while you're recording your voice and while you have that image actually recording. So nobody has to see you at all, they're just seeing the artwork. And narrate over it and just say, go down that list and answer 2 questions under each of those 4 headings, like describing it. What is the overall shape and color? What material does it look like? And do you think it's abstract or more realist? Then the next one is analyze. How do you think the artist got these textures? What are the fascinating textures to you that really draw you in? Or what about the shape of the object makes it interesting to look at? Then the third one is, what do you think the artist was thinking? How are you responding to it? How does it make you feel? What are the elements of it that make you feel that way? So you're interpreting it. And then the fourth step is judging. Do you like it? Do you think it's successful? And sometimes you'll find out that you may believe that the artwork itself is successful, but you may not like it, and that's totally fine. Are there elements as you judge it, are there elements that you really, really like? Describe those. And are there elements that if it was your own, you would rework? Now, and that whole thing doesn't have to take longer than about 3.5 minutes. And if you want, you can do one video that's of your own, critiquing your own work, and one video critiquing somebody else's. Or if you want, you can make one video that has your critique and then somebody else's critique. So that video in that case would be about 6 to 7 minutes long. If you make 2 videos, each one would be about 3 minutes or so. And when you critique your own work, what I want you to do before you start recording is just make up your mind you're going to pretend it's somebody else's, as though you're seeing it for the first time. The reason I have you do that is a lot of the times when people pretend that they're looking at their own work for the first time, they start seeing things about it and realizing they did things that either they weren't conscious of when they worked on it or had completely forgotten about. And they realize, oh yeah, I did do that. That's not too bad. So does anybody have any questions regarding the applying the tools of artistic critique videos? I haven't seen any of those yet. Again, all these videos, I don't want you to post them on your YouTube channel or anything. What I need is the actual file, and then I'll take that file and post it up on our YouTube channel. All right. Does anybody have any questions about the tools of artistic critique videos? So you guys are all ready to do those and take a good crack at them. I will tell you that the first 3 people that send them to me will get extra credit. So just so you know. Does anybody have any more questions about the things we covered today? I am going to be catching up on grading this afternoon and tomorrow. Hopefully get all that caught up to date. And we will meet again on Thursday. And I haven't heard back from everybody regarding the finals time. Who here, out of the 4 of you, who here has already written me back about which final time is best for them?
I have.
Okay. Are you a morning person or afternoon?
I said mornings work good, but my schedule's flexible, so I can do whatever.
Okay. All right. Good. How about you, Lauren? Were you able to get back to me on that?
I have not yet, but I'm pretty flexible as well, so I probably could do either one.
Okay. All right. Good. How about Shelby? Or McKenna, were you able to get back to me? Did you already email me?
I just realized I forgot as well. I'm a slacker. But my schedule's pretty flexible as well. But mornings, I'm more of a mornings might work better.
Okay. Well, that's really good. Well, you can only do nights during the week? All right. Would you, Shelby, would you look at the times on there and tell me then which of the two evening ones is best for you? All right. Now, the final is next Thursday, and I think the email I told everybody was on Tuesday the 24th is on Thursday the 24th, so that's next Thursday. And I will this in the next day or so I will tell you what the final time is, and it is imperative that everybody show up during the final time and during the whole length of the final. And what we will be doing is not a test, but we will be talking about the class and just the different things that people learned in the class and from the quizzes and from doing the projects. All right, I look forward to seeing you guys on this Thursday and then again next week as well. If we need to have any further meetings to address questions or anything like that, please let me know. Please email me and we will set that up. All right. Does anybody have any last questions before we wind up and go our separate ways? Alrighty then, in that case, I will look forward to seeing y'all on Thursday morning, and I hope everybody has an absolutely wonderful week. Alrighty, we'll see you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.